So this is the honeycomb motif, and I'm going to do a demo video of me painting this and talking along as I go. I've got several yellows mixed up out of my woodland set. You can use the tropicals or just a classic set, that ochre yellow and that kind of thing. I mixed a little bit of oranges, a little yellows and browns to get a few varieties of a yellow that I'd like to use. This one, mainly the gold, are these two colors, Sand Ridge and Daylight. So I'm going to go into each little honeycomb here, and I'll start with the insides of each of these little honeycombs. Leave a little bit of the white of the paper, that's my choice, and I'm going to, while it's wet, dab in a little bit of an orangey kind of color here. Let that sort of dissipate. And you can just do a different color of gold. I'll show you as we go into this next one. Got this color gold I can tap in here. And to make those look the same, I'll just pop in a little bit of this hibiscus color that I've added as a separate color into this woodland set. And you can use an orange from any of your palettes, so I will just keep painting these until I have completed them. You just want to make sure it's dry before you start painting the black, or it'll just bleed into the rest of your painting. So while we're letting that dry, I'm going to mix up a little more yellow here, this golden color, and I am going to add more of this hibiscus. Test it out on the tester that you have included in your take and paint. Should have that included. So what we'll do is use a lot of water, and we get to go around this area as though the honey is kind of flowing out from this honeycomb, and that's your choice. So I'm going to move my water. Now this is like basically clear water. There's just a little color and pigment from mixing that. And I am going to move around this with some water. I don't have to put too much on there, and just kind of make that flowy, and then I'm going to come and sort of end it over here. So now as I drop this water in, it'll start to flow to the outside of the area that I chose. And I don't have to go out to all of the areas that I made wet. That will just dry and there'll be no paint in it as I'm formulating a little bit of the design. And this is a little off center because this part would be under a mat if you were framing it. So I'm going to go out a little farther there, back into there, and then I think I'm going to add some up here. And again, I can kind of dabble in a little bit of different yellows that I've created over here in my palette, just to deposit some variation here to give it a little bit of dimension. Okay, and then I'll want to let that dry. So in the meantime, I'm going to do the body of the bee because it's not associated with any of the watery areas. And I've got this shadow color. If you've got a black or gray, it'd be good to, this is a common mistake in my class, I'm going to let you know as I watch other people paint. That's very difficult to do these tiny little lines, and depending on the kind of brush you have, this is a small brush, it's got a fine tip, but if you don't have that, you may just want to fill that in with a black marker when you're done, a pen of some kind, and not mess up your drawing. I did see people do fat lines, and it really disturbed their the look of their painting, so you just want to be careful and kind of think of that ahead of time. So I'm going to go in here and just wait on those little antennas to make sure everything's nice and dry. Probably really ought to do the yellow first now that I'm thinking about it, so I may switch that out when I get to the bottom here. Be careful not to put your hand in wet paint. And I'm going to make this bee a little bit more kind of tricky what color I want him to look so he's distinct from the honey a little bit. And I'm going to put some yellow in here. Not going to go into that area up there. And let's see, my original drawing. Of course, you can just make up what you want on the yellow and black, just alternating that. In there. And now if I go in here and start just putting some of these in, I want to make sure that I don't combine those too much, but it'll look better if you wait. So I'll come in here and do a very fine line, and it might be best to kind of pull toward the leg with these lines, that way you can get the fine hairs of that brush out of the ends. Or you can just use the black pen, the micron pen. It doesn't even have to be waterproof because you can wait till it's dry. So in this case, I'm going to kind of beef up that leg a little bit so it doesn't look so spider-like. And now I'll do the other one, assuming all of my yellow is dry. When I created this, I really wasn't sure if I wanted to use a realistic bee or more of a cartoon, but I really like this more realistic look. It's been popular. Everybody wants to save the bees, and rightly so. Okay, so I'm going to do the wings and then I'll come back and get the black. So I created, they're clear, so that's up to you, but I kind of created a little bit of it's a little bit too much pigment, so I'm going to take that and add a lot more water, squeeze it in there, and start there with just a very small amount of pigment in these wings. And I'm not going to get my brush into that black. And once that dries a little bit, now I have a lot of water pulled here, so I'm going to just siphon some of that up with my quicker picker upper here. Just don't want it to look too blue. And then I added kind of this purpley color. You can barely see that. And a little bit of this. And I only did this just to add interest and kind of make it look like it's reflecting something. So it's totally an artistic license here. And we'll see how that dries. And then see if we need to finish that up a little bit more. So I'm going to put this black, really making that kind of like a gray for his body, although it is black. I think I don't want it to be quite so intense. And I'm making little dashes or dapples like that, so if you're trying to follow along, I'm going to try to go really carefully between those dried black lines just to make sure not to get them blended too well together. So I would definitely start with the yellow, let that dry, and then do the black next. It's been a while since I taught the class. Right now, I'm just going to dab a little more of this pink in here. It's the foxberry color. So you can use whatever. There may be purple in your box, and that would be nice too. It's just kind of what I have. That's way too much, so I'm going to come back in here, stamp that. I've got wet paint other places, so I'm going to use a dry paper towel. All right, now I'm going, I just got red into my painting, so I'm going to use a clear brush and scrub at that, and dab it away. And if you're not able to get rid of it, you don't like it, in any case, this is a great way to show you, okay, I'm just going to now sort of incorporate that into my painting, and it is gone. So in other cases, you may be able to take a pencil and sort of draw something else into it if you're doing something other than this motif. And now I'm going to add a little bit of shadow to, once these are dry, to sort of give dimension. And I haven't painted around my honeycomb yet, so we don't want to forget that. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of shadow to just the ones that are in this honey area. Last little thing, let's see, we needed to get our little antenna. Do not draw out that way, always pull toward yourself. So I'm going to wipe my brush off, and then I've got this fun little thing we did in the class, is I've got these metallics, which are always fun to have on hand, especially around holidays or some specialty things like this, where now I'm going to take this metallic and put it over the wing after that's dry. And it's wet, so it'll shine a little bit anyway, but that's what it'll look like afterwards. And of course you can add a little bit to the honey as well, especially if you got some gold. Kind of come in here to some of these little areas and So you've got that little sparkle and shine on your finished product.